Hello, we are live. And if you're listening out there, if you could please let me know if you could hear me. I know that would be greatly appreciated. In fact, I should be able to tell on my own in a second. So, I've been pretty MIA over the course of the last month, and there is, just make sure that works, it's working, and there is a very good reason for that. And over the course of what I'm about to present here, I want you to keep something in mind, or I want you to ask yourself one question. How do you make the world better? More specifically, how do you make your world better? Because I know for me at times, and for so many people, we spend so much time screaming at the world, and we need to get this person elected because this person's going to solve all of our problems, or we need to get a job working for this person because they're a mover, they're a shaker, and this company, it's going to the moon, it's a rocket ship, or I need to buy this cryptocurrency because this cryptocurrency, well, it's really going to take off. And we do all of these different things, and we just get frustrated. So my question is, how do we make the world a better place? Well, over the last month, I've been pretty MIA, and there's a great reason for that. Most of you know me. For those of you that have followed me from the beginning, when I started making documentaries about Seth Rich, I was exposing important things in the American political spectrum that people had to know. And where did that come from? Where did I come from? So today I'm going to lay out the story of Tom Anderson. And the story of Tom Anderson starts in maybe September, October of 2016. And everyone was all fired up for the presidential race, right? Donald Trump was running for president. I was a big supporter. I was ready to make America great again. I hadn't done anything in the public sphere, but I thought, heck, I'll take a shot at it. UK's in the house. Thanks for watching, brother. This is a very important podcast for me, something I'm very excited about, and I'm really going to lay it all out here. So, it's 2016, and I wanted Trump to get elected. I said, shit, I'll take a shot at it. So I'll never forget it. I was mowing the lawn. I was a young guy. I hadn't bought my own house yet. I was still living at my father's house. And I was mowing my father's lawn, and I was thinking about businesses that maybe I could start or maybe I can do something. And I said, well, what am I really passionate about? Because I didn't know anything about this stuff. I said, well, I really want Trump to win. And I said, you know what? I'll start something. And that day, from mowing my lawn, FFR News was born. And at the time, it was just a Facebook page. And what was a Facebook page became a Twitter and became a YouTube account. And I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't know much about the world, but I knew I wanted to make a difference. So I said, you know what? I'll put my hat in the ring and I'll get out there and do it. And I'm not going to worry about what people think. Well, I was going to worry about it just a little bit. And for those of you that have followed me for the longest time, you know that I've said on multiple occasions that Tom Anderson, and this is why it's the story of Tom Anderson, he was born on that day because Tom Anderson is a pseudonym. Tom Anderson was a name that I used to protect myself and I used to protect my family. And as I move along in this story, you'll see the relevance of this episode of why I'm saying the story of Tom Anderson. But I got onto YouTube and something crazy happened because I never even watched YouTube. I didn't care about any of this. I thought people that spent their time on the internet were misguided. I didn't get a Facebook until one of my girlfriends made me get a Facebook. And looking back, I realized because she wanted to keep tabs on me. But I started the YouTube channel. I made a documentary about the unsolved murder of DNC staffer Seth Rich, and something crazy happened. A couple of days went by and 10,000 people had watched my video. I said, wow, this is easy. So I made another video about Seth Rich, and I wound up being an 8-part series. And hey, Mike, how you doing? This is a very important episode for me, so I really appreciate you tuning in. So I made this 8-part documentary on Seth Rich, and in total, the 8 videos probably got over 100,000 views. And I just kept going from there, and for a while I was making documentaries, and I was doing really cutting-edge stuff. I was doing controversial videos. I made videos exposing pedophile networks. In fact, if you haven't watched them, go back and watch them, because I really, I'm proud of the work I did. I did work exposing some very dark people. In fact, the work I did exposed such darkness that it led me, and I don't like to push my beliefs on anyone, but it led me to finding a belief in God, because the people I had exposed were so evil and so dark that I literally felt as if I had looked into the eyes of the devil. Because before I started researching this stuff, I didn't know the world was that dark. But I continued the fight, and I was making documentaries. Then I started doing just videos of me talking, general philosophy, and I started doing live streams. And I had a really good time with it. But after time went by, I decided that it wasn't the full direction I wanted to go, and I released a video, is FFR News a failure or a success? And my conclusion was that it couldn't be a failure because the experience it gave me. Because something is only a failure if you don't learn from it. And I went from the guy mowing a lawn to the guy who was making videos, and I wound up, I don't know the exact count, but I have to have around 1 million views, which is quite remarkable from someone that started from nothing. So I made this video, was FFR News a success? And then what I said that day was, from this point forward, I'm going to change directions. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do. It's going to take me some time to figure it out, but I will figure it out. And the justification I gave for that was one of the theories I've developed in life, that the you of now should be unrecognizable to the you 5 years ago, or unrecognizable to the you 5 years from now, because you should always be growing as a person. So I floundered back and forth for a little while. I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do. And then I started to think about what I was truly passionate about: education. And I started to study business, and I took some time off, and I took a lot of time off over the last month and a half. And I thought about everything I've done, and I started to study business and business systems, and I started to create things in the background. And it's this week, and I started, I vaguely introduced Classical Learner, which is my corporation. I incorporated Classical Learner, which is an education platform designed to assist parents in alternative education methods to better educate their children. And it goes something like this. We all came through the education system, and whether you have, doesn't really matter, whether you have a high school degree, whether you have a bachelor's degree, whether you have a master's degree, which I myself do, which is something I'm going to get into in a minute, I don't think it really matters that when we get out of this system of education, whether it's high school or whether it's a master's degree, we don't really have real world skills. We are trained in a compartmentalized way. We are trained to get a piece of paper that says you can do this. And the reason they say you can't be successful unless you have a bachelor's degree or a master's degree is because they don't know any other way than finding success through that piece of paper. If you don't have a piece of paper that says this university and therefore the government authorizes you to partake in this industry, well then the only thing you can do is ask people, do you want fries with that? But that's not true, and that's not true at all. And if you study successful people, it's actually the complete opposite. That there are tons of successful people all over the world. In fact, if you want to look at the uber successful people, it had nothing to do with their college education. People you might not like, but people like Steve Jobs, people like Mark Zuckerberg, people like the guy that started Virgin Galactic, so many people that are ultra successful, Michael Dell. they didn't go to college. Many of them dropped out of high school. The guys that were behind the Human Genome Project, they were dropouts. So we are sold this lie that there's nothing we can do outside of getting a degree. But what I want to offer is something more. I want to assist parents in educating their children so that their children have a set of skills that allows them to be entrepreneurs, that allows them to have unique skills, even if they don't want to start their own business, unique skills that they could bring to an employer so that they say, look, I can provide value to you, and then in turn, employers will provide value to them. So what I'm pushing is something that's completely out of the norm, something that many people say you can't do. But if you study successful people, and you can find this in books written by Scott Adams and so many others, you know that successful people have what I call talent stacks, which are sets of different traits that allow them to find success in whatever it might be. Take someone like Mark Cuban, for example. Well, what does he know? He knows computer coding, and because he knew computer coding, he was able to sell his business to Yahoo for $4 billion. But his talent stack doesn't stop there. He's tall, he's good looking, he's quick with a joke, he has sales experience. He talks about how when he was young, he would go door to door. Sorry about that. He would go door to door selling products to mothers and fathers. If you study the story of Warren Buffett, when he was 6 years old, he started his first business. He realized that rich people like to golf. So what Buffett did, 6 years old, believe this, he hired 5 of his little friends to go to the golf course every day and pick up all the balls that were hit into the rough that these rich golfers didn't bother to go get. He then made an agreement at 6 years old with a local pro shop. This is Warren Buffett, with a local pro shop. And his friends would collect the balls, they'd give them to Buffett, and the pro shop would buy the golf balls back from Buffett, and he gave his friends half of the profit. He was bringing this passive income in, and he didn't even have to work. Warren Buffett, when he was 9 years old, started going to racetracks. And he realized that people would throw away winning tickets. So he started to just dig through the garbage cans. He would get winning tickets, and he would cash them in. At 11 years old, he said, you know what? These people that bet on the racetracks, I bet they would like the stock market. 11 years old. So he printed out some sheets, or wrote up some sheets, and he started selling Stable Boy stock tips at the racetrack at 11 years old, and he was making money off of that. Then at 13 years old, he ran away from home. He went to Washington and started a business he started his own paper route. And he wound up doing 1,500 units a day. You say, how can he do 1,500 units a day on a paper route? Well, he figured out that if you wanted volume, you should go for volume. So he went to the tallest apartment buildings he could find. He got contracts with those apartment buildings at 13 years old, bringing them their newspapers every day. Then he hired the bellhops at the apartment buildings to bring the newspapers up to each apartment. So all he had to do was drop the papers off to the apartments, and he would have these apartment buildings done. Then, at 15 years old, Buffett purchased his first property. And he rented the property to a farmer, and he had passive income coming from that. And by the time Warren Buffett was 17 years old, he had $10,000 in the bank, which is the equivalent of $100,000 today. So there are different ways in which you can do things and different talent stacks that you can develop in children. How do you do that? You do that through feedback-based learning through experience, and you do that through the pursuit of what I like to call creative excellence. So what is creative excellence? You take a child, right? They have an endless imagination. What can you think up right now? You can think up anything, but can you do it? Well, if you raise a child right and you teach them art, music, construction, engineering, computer coding. What you are doing is creating a child with creative excellence, a child that has the ability to take anything within their imagination and bring it into fruition in the real world. This is how we educate our children to be better, and this is the type of thing I'm doing through Classical Learner. But the question is, why am I qualified to do this? What gives me the right? Tom Anderson has audacity. Well, I'll tell you how much audacity Tom Anderson has. Enough to refer to myself in the third person, obviously. Enough audacity to start my own news organization in 2016 and start calling myself by a pseudonym, which is Tom Anderson. But today, as I launch Classical Learner, and I hope you, in the description notes below, you go to www.classicallearner.com, check out what I'm doing. Also in the description notes below is the free parent guide cheat sheet. So if you go, in fact, I'll post it for you right now. This is the parent guide cheat sheet. It's just a few tips that parents can use in educating their children. And it has a bunch of resources attached and all that good stuff. And with it, you have the ability to schedule a free family assessment. So basically, you go on this parent guide cheat sheet, you click on the link, which I'll post in a minute, or you could get it in the description notes below. And, well, I'll get it if my computer cooperates. Copy. And what you can do is schedule a free assessment. A calendar comes up, and I will meet with you digitally via phone conference, and we'll talk about the best strategies in better educating our children. And then with that, you can move forward with my program, or you can just have a one-on-one 30, 45-minute conversation with me, pick my brain about your situation, about how you want to raise your children, and you can get the value from that. But it's completely free. It's for you, so I do hope you get the parent guide cheat sheet, and I do hope you schedule a free family assessment with me. But I had the audacity to operate under a pseudonym, but now I want to tell you the story of Brett Pike. Because before I started FFR News, before I became Tom Anderson, and my family would joke and they'd call me Tom, my mother named me Brett Pike. And that's who I am. And as I start Classical Learner, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of people attacking me for my political beliefs. I've long passed that, what I think was an irrational fear when I started doing this. But that's what they do, right? They make you afraid to speak your mind. So I used a pseudonym. But my real name is Brett Pike. And I say that proudly. And I am the CEO, the founder of ClassicalLearner.com. You can follow Classical Learner on Instagram. You can follow Classical Learner at www.classicallearner.com. You could click that link I just posted and get the parent guide cheat sheet. You could schedule a free family assessment with me. I'd be very happy to talk to you, and I'm very eager to talk about many things about better educating our children. So, when I was a child, I sucked at school. I wasn't school material. They said I was no good. My teachers didn't want me in their classrooms. They said I was hyper. They said I didn't listen. They said I did what I wanted to do. I routinely got in fistfights, not because I was bad, but because my father was a United States Marine, and he taught me, and I took it very seriously when you're in elementary school, that if someone messed with you, you let them have it. So I did that, and my parents would get called down to the principal's office, and they said he's no good, and the school psychologist said, we need to put him on pills. And my mother went to the school psychologist and said, how about I take those pills and shove them up your ass? Thank you, Mom. I love you so much. Thank you for protecting my mind. And thank you for loving me unconditionally so that I can have the confidence to do what I'm doing here. And that's the first thing I teach families, that if you love your children unconditionally, if you give them the love they deserve, they will be the person that they are. They will be their unique self. They will not worry about what the rest of the world thinks about them. Because you can't do what I'm doing here if you're worried about what everyone else thinks about you. And I'm not. I am the truest me. In fact, when I have conversations with people out in the real world, I pity people because I see that people don't have their own thoughts. People don't think for themselves. People think within a thought bubble of what they're supposed to think, what they're told to think. And the only way we can break that cycle is through the unconditional love of parents. Because my parents didn't raise me to think freely because they themselves, no offense if they're out there watching, didn't truly know how. I figured that out as I was a historian and then I became a philosopher. And well, that led me down the path I am here, and I've spent my time trying to free minds. But it's unconditional love from the parents. So my mom, she looks at the school psychologist and says, I'll shove those pills up your ass. I said, no, you won't drug my child. Yes, he's hyper. Yes, he lashes out a little bit. He's a young boy, and it's okay. Maybe you shouldn't make him sit all day in a classroom. Maybe he needs to run around. Which, little off topic, but funny story. I remember when I got punished one time in school, in elementary school, and my punishment was that I no longer got to go to recess. I had to spend my time sitting in a classroom. Which, if you think about it, if a child's too hyper, maybe they need more recess, not to be forced to sit in one spot. So anyway, I didn't get along with school. And my grades were I got B's and C's, except in history class. I liked history. I always got A's in history class. And then when I was 18 years old, I had the advice, the indoctrination of what we're told our entire lives, right? You need to go to college and you need to get a degree because if you don't, you'll be asked, do you want fries with that? So when I was 18 years old, I signed on the dotted lines. I took out the college loans and I went off to Wesley College in Delaware to study history education. I don't know. They said, do what you love. No one said that, hey, if you're going to be a history teacher, starting salaries on that aren't that good. And, well, you guys get the picture. You're taking out all these loans. Hey, do what you love, right? So I went to Wesley, and after about 1 year, I transferred to Cortland University in upstate New York. And I didn't take school seriously at all. I spent my first couple of years of college getting drunk and chasing girls. And did I have a lot of fun? I had a lot of fun. I got drunk. I smoked pot, something I don't endorse to young people if you're out there. I just want to be honest about my story. But I really just spent my first few years of college messing around and having a good time. Nothing really mattered. I was just told to get a degree and you'll be good. I didn't have any ambition, anything like that. And then I got to my junior year. And I said, oh man, you know what? I'm going to be teaching children. I'm going to teach children in 2 years. I better start really learning stuff. I said, okay, I'm gonna take school seriously. So my junior year, I started to take school seriously. And I started to, interestingly enough, I didn't know anything about politics really. I said, you know what I'll do? I heard there's this right wing and this left wing. Fox is the right wing, and CNN is the left wing. So every day, instead of watching whatever it is I watched, when I got to my apartment back from school, I would just put on Fox News half the time, put on CNN the other half the time. I said, okay, I'll get both sides of the story. I'll really start to figure this shit out. Obviously, it wasn't until I turned both of those off that I started to figure things out. But I started to take school more seriously, and I graduated with my bachelor's degree, and I'm going to be a history teacher. And then right out of college, I got a really good job in the early intervention program working with families of children who are 0 to 3 years old. I said, oh, you know what? I thought I was going to do history, but I'm working one-on-one with these families, and I really enjoy this. Because basically what I was doing was assisting families. I'd have hundreds of cases at a time, and I would assist families in formulating customized educational plans. They're called IFSP plans to assist their children 0 to 3 years old with developmental disabilities. So I got a lot of experience working one-on-one with families, and I would make the goals, the objectives that these families needed to work on with their children. And then I would set them up with speech therapists, with physical therapists, occupational therapists, children with autism. I would set them up with ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis. So I really got a lot of experience working with this population, working with families, and making customized plans with my mind for these families. So I said, you know what, I'm doing this, I have a good job, I'm making a lot of money, I'm a young guy, I have no responsibilities, very little in terms of bills. I was on top of the world, and I was still out there just chasing girls and getting drunk. I was not a serious person at all. I had not much ambition. I was just like, this is great, I'm doing fantastic. So I said, you know what, I get a master's degree. So I went to Queens College for their Birth to Two special education program, because that's what I was working in. And I dominated. All the teachers that told me I was no good in elementary school and middle school, if you needed to know, I went to my master's program and I graduated with a 4.0 GPA at the top of my class. I was handed down the award or the honor of the #1 student in my entire program. I was going places. And that almost took me to 2016 when that's when I became Tom Anderson. And I started my news channel, and then I started to really study the world. And I came across these incredible minds, people like Richard Grove of the Peace Revolution, who looked at me and said, the way you think is wrong. You don't think for yourself. And these people that started to talk about the process of how to think. And I came across people that were doing philosophy, not the bull philosophy that you get in college classrooms, but real world philosophy, questioning their inner beliefs, having an internal dialectic, and arguing with yourself. Are my beliefs my beliefs? Do they come from somewhere else? Are there contradictions? Do I have contradictions within my own belief system? And I started to develop concepts like intellectual self-defense, which is if you have a thought in your mind, and then you get a new piece of information, and it contradicts your previous thought, you have to change your current belief system. Because if you don't, there's a contradiction within the way you think, and you're displaying cognitive dissonance. So intellectual self-defense is the process of removing contradictions from your thinking process so that you know that you are logically consistent and at least you're thinking for yourself and you're not displaying cognitive dissonance. So I started understanding the world better through doing philosophy, through my understanding. And of course, my background in history, I was very capable of getting back to primary sources. That's easy for me. You could give me any topic and I could research it. Give me 30 minutes and I will get back to the primary documents and I will know where the information came from, know what the lies are. That was always very easy to me. By the way, if you want to talk about how I'm going to help people educate their children, a little bit of this. So I started to study so much, and I started to get interested in the world, and I started to study the education system, because the system that I had been educated in the system that had educated me to educate children, I said, wait a second, it didn't teach me anything of use. I had nothing in terms of real world skills. I didn't even know how to think. I was told that truth comes from authority, where if you're letting authority dictate to you what's truth, you're just letting those that have power, because authority's power, decide what is true. No, truth comes from, you can't be told truth. You have to discover truth. You have to get back to primary sources. You have to do science experiments for yourself, or you have to at least do the appropriate reading to make sure that something's not considered true just because someone says it is. So I said, I need to question this whole system of education. So I started to read these incredible minds, people like Dorothy Sayers and the Lost Tools of Learning, people like John Taylor Gatto writing books like Dumbing Us Down and Weapons of Mass Instruction. I started to come across podcasts like School Sucks. And you realize that the entire education system is designed to create a system of dependent people incapable of thinking for themselves, who are stuck working for major corporations, not sovereign people, not independent people who are capable of making their own money in a free market so that they don't have to rely on a boss or they don't have to rely on the government. Just the opposite. The school system is training us to be prisoners. And then they tell us to take out this college debt, and they tell us to take out this mortgage debt, and before you know it, you look up and you're living paycheck to paycheck, and you can't miss a payment, so you can't miss work, and you don't get to spend time with your children, and everything that life should be is taken from you through this system of education. I said, I can do this better. I am trained in formal methods of education. I have a bachelor's degree in 7 to 12 history education. I have a master's degree in birth to second grade special education. I have nearly a decade of experience working one-on-one with families, formulating customized education plans for them. I can break the system, because if you don't like the system, don't complain about it. The system is sitting there on the table. Put your palms underneath that table and flip it over and make something better. Start a new game. And with Classical Learner, I am going to fundamentally alter the way parents think about educating their children, the way parents think about raising their children. I have an article written on Classical Learner right now, if you want to go check it out, which are the 14 lessons that are taught at elite private schools. I'm talking the private schools that the Kennedys go to. The 14 lessons that are taught at elite private schools that are not taught in public school. Because as you can imagine, the education systems are quite different. And I'll probably do an entire episode on that, an entire podcast on that. So I do ask that you please go to www.classicallearner.com. If you want to click on the link I posted, I'll post it again. That is the free parent guide cheat sheet. Great information for what you should be thinking about, and great resources to better educate your children. And if you click on the link on the parent guide cheat sheet, or if you go to classicallearner.com, you click on schedule a one-on-one consultation, you can schedule a free one-on-one family assessment with me. I will sit down with you for about 30 plus minutes. I will talk about my educational philosophy. I will talk about your family, your in-home culture, what your objectives are for your children, what your skills are, what your children's skills are, and how we can formulate a customized plan for you, for your family, for your children, so that we can follow their interests. We can follow their natural interests. So the motivation is intrinsic to teach them skills, a talent stack, a set of skills that gives them creative excellence so they can do anything they want in this world, so that they can be sovereign and never rely on anyone else. Now, when I started this podcast, I asked you to think about a question. How do we change the world? How do we make the world better? And what I said was, or how I started, was by saying we all just scream at screens. We scream, we need to make America great again, or we need this corporation to do that, or the Federal Reserve Bank is really bad. It sure is. But the way we change the world, and the way we change, most importantly, our worlds, because we do change the world by changing our worlds, the grassroots level, is that we need to build. If you don't like the education system, build a new one. I think it's funny a lot, right? Because you get a lot with the censorship. You say, oh yeah, just build new social media platforms. Well, yeah, on the one hand, that's difficult. On the other hand, yeah. Keep complaining about what's happening, but yes, build. And with Classical Learner, what I'm doing is building a different an alternative educational platform, so that we can raise our children to think for themselves, and we can raise them with a skill set so that they don't ever have to rely on anyone else. We can raise them with an understanding of the world so that they understand the pitfalls of taking out $150,000 in college loans for a major that you only get paid $40,000 a year, whatever people go into. We can do things differently. And it starts with building our own world. It starts with forming communities. It starts with getting to know your neighbor. We don't change the world by yelling at screens. We change the world by changing our world. By growing our own food, by starting your garden, by putting up a greenhouse, by selling your house, downsizing so that you don't have a mortgage, so that you can live free, so that you can travel, so that you can show your child the Sistine Chapel rather than talking to him about it. So please go to www.classicallearner.com. Please check out what I'm doing. Please share the links. I have also been trying to build on Instagram, so if you go to Classical Learner Today, I believe you could type in Brett Pike or Classical Learner Today on Instagram, and that will come right up. www.classicallearner.com. Please check out my stuff. Schedule a free family assessment with me if you have children. All of that stuff. So we are going to build a better world. So if you had any questions, I now open it up to you. I will answer those questions. And I'm also just going to read. I was ranting, so I wasn't reading what you guys were saying. So I'll take a look now and see what you guys were saying. Love that the UK is in the building. Yeah, I haven't been following politics to the point. I know Tommy Robinson's having his court case, but I don't even know exactly what's going on with it. Yeah, I know Mike Miller is a very smart guy, and what he was saying is he taught himself how to research. He didn't learn much in school. Right. When school doesn't want you, they suspend you. You're no good, so they say get out of school. Meanwhile, that's the best thing they can do. So, again, I will post the parent guide cheat sheet, www.classicallearner.com. I really appreciate you tuning in. I hope you share this link. And this is just the beginning. Also, follow Classical Learner on YouTube because I've already posted some videos there, and eventually that will just be my primary location. Or I don't know my primary, but a location where I post more of my videos. But I'm doing a lot of good things here. I'm very excited about it. Instagram, Classical Learner Today, www.classicallearner.com. Get your free parent guide cheat sheet. Schedule your free family assessment. Together, we are going to change the world.